There comes a moment in life when you have to stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided what they want to believe about you. You have to stop chasing approval, stop defending every decision, and stop trying to prove your worth to people who refuse to see it. Sometimes the strongest response you can give is silence. Not because you are weak, not because you have nothing to say, but because you finally understand that everything does not deserve a response. People may misunderstand you. They may question your choices. They may underestimate your ability. They may look at your quiet season and assume you have been defeated. But never allow someone else's opinion to become the definition of your destiny. There are battles you do not have to fight, because time will fight them for you. Stay silent when your actions can speak louder. Stay silent when explaining yourself will only create another argument. Stay silent when people are committed to misunderstanding you. Your job is not to convince everybody. Your job is to keep becoming the person you were called to become. Sometimes God will take you into a quiet season because He is building something inside you that cannot be developed in the noise. When everybody else is talking, you are learning. When everybody else is watching, you are working. When everybody else is judging, you are growing. And one day, the same people who questioned your strength will see the evidence of what your silence was producing. Your silence is not emptiness. Your silence can be preparation. Let them talk while you build. Let them doubt while you learn. Let them overlook you while you develop discipline. Let them assume you have nothing left while you quietly gather the strength to rise again. You do not need to announce every move. You do not need to reveal every dream. You do not need to tell everybody what you are planning. Some things become stronger when they are protected from unnecessary opinions. Time has a way of exposing what words try to hide. A person can talk about greatness, but eventually their life must produce evidence. A person can pretend to be strong, but eventually pressure reveals character. A person can criticize your journey, but eventually time reveals who is actually growing. So stop being frustrated because people do not recognize your strength yet. They may not recognize it because they have only seen the chapter you are currently living. They have not seen what is coming. They have not seen the discipline you are developing. They have not seen the lessons you are learning. They have not seen the nights when you chose to keep going. They have not seen how many times you had to encourage yourself. They have not seen the person you are becoming, and you do not have to explain it. Keep walking, keep learning, keep building. Keep your heart humble and your vision clear, because one of the most powerful things you can do is become so committed to your growth that you no longer need to argue about it. Your silence protects your peace and gives you room to grow. There comes a time in your life when you have to understand that peace is not something you find by getting everyone to agree with you. Peace comes when you stop believing that every opinion deserves your attention and every accusation deserves your defense. Some people will misunderstand you. Some people will question your decisions. Some people will create their own version of your story. And if you are not careful, you will spend your entire life trying to correct a story you never wrote. You will explain yourself over and over again. You will replay conversations in your mind. You will wonder what someone meant, why they said something, why they treated you differently, and what you could have done to make them understand you. But there comes a moment when you have to say, I don't have to explain everything. Not every misunderstanding requires a meeting. Not every criticism requires a response. Not every accusation deserves your energy. Not every person deserves access to your peace. There is strength in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Silence does not mean you are afraid. Silence does not mean you have nothing intelligent to say. Sometimes silence means you have become wise enough to recognize that the conversation is not going anywhere. You can win an argument and still lose your peace. You can prove your point and still leave the conversation exhausted. You can make somebody admit that you were right and still discover that nothing meaningful changed. So ask yourself, is this conversation worth the energy it is taking from me? Because your energy is valuable. Your attention is valuable. Your peace is valuable. And when you give those things away carelessly, you have less left for the work you are supposed to be doing. There are dreams that need your attention. There are skills you need to develop. There are responsibilities waiting for you. There are lessons you need to learn. There is a stronger version of yourself waiting to be developed. You cannot build that version of yourself if you are constantly distracted by what everyone else is saying. Sometimes you need to close the door on the noise so you can finally hear your own thoughts. When you become quiet, You begin to notice things you could not hear when your life was filled with constant opinions. You begin to ask yourself better questions. What do I really want? What kind of person am I becoming? What habits are helping me? What habits are holding me back? What lessons am I supposed to learn from this season? What should I stop carrying? What should I start building? Those questions can change your life because they move your attention away from other people's opinions and back toward your own growth. And that is where silence becomes powerful. Silence creates space. Space creates reflection. Reflection creates wisdom. And wisdom changes the way you move. You stop reacting to everything. You start observing. You stop answering every accusation. You start choosing your battles. You stop trying to impress everybody. You start focusing on becoming better. That is maturity. You don't have to respond just because someone provoked you. You don't have to reveal everything just because someone asked. You don't have to announce every goal just because you are excited about it. Some dreams need protection while they are still developing. Some plans need privacy while you are still building them. Some changes need time before they become visible. Think about a seed. When you plant a seed, you don't dig it up every day to prove that something is happening underneath the soil. You trust the process, you water it, you protect it, you give it time. And eventually, what was invisible becomes visible. Your life can be like that. There may be things developing inside you that nobody can see yet. Your discipline may be growing. Your confidence may be growing. Your wisdom may be growing. Your patience may be growing. Your ability to handle difficult situations may be growing. And because people cannot see the process, they may assume nothing is happening. Let them assume. You know what you are building. You know the work you are putting in. You know how much you have learned. You know how much you have changed. You don't need to interrupt every person who misunderstands your journey. Sometimes the best answer is simply to continue. Continue learning, continue working, continue improving, continue becoming wiser, continue choosing peace. Because when you constantly defend yourself, you can become trapped in the opinions of other people. You start making decisions based on what they might say. You start wondering how they will react. You start changing your behavior to avoid criticism. And eventually, you are no longer living according to your values. You are living according to everybody else's expectations. You cannot build a meaningful life that way. At some point, you have to become comfortable with being misunderstood. That does not mean ignoring legitimate feedback or refusing to admit mistakes. It means understanding that you cannot control every interpretation of your actions. If you make a mistake, acknowledge it. If you hurt someone, take responsibility. If you need to apologize, apologize. But after you have done what is right, don't spend your entire life begging to be understood. Learn. Correct what needs correcting. Then keep moving. There is freedom in realizing that you don't have to prove your character every single day. Your consistency will reveal it. Your choices will reveal it. Your behavior will reveal it. Your treatment of people will reveal it. Time will reveal it. You don't need to shout about who you are when your life can demonstrate it. And sometimes, the people who criticize your silence will be the very people who benefited from your constant explanations. They were comfortable when you were always available to defend yourself. They were comfortable when they could pull you into arguments. They were comfortable when they could make you react. But when you become calm, focused, and disciplined, they may no longer know how to control the conversation. That is why you must learn the difference between peace and avoidance. Silence is not about running away from responsibility. Silence is about refusing to participate in unnecessary chaos. There are moments when you should speak. There are moments when you should stand up for yourself. There are moments when you should ask for help, clarify something important, or address a real problem. But there are also moments when speaking only adds fuel to something that does not deserve to grow. Wisdom is knowing the difference. You don't have to attend every argument you are invited to. You don't have to respond to every person who misunderstands you. You don't have to prove your strength by becoming loud. Sometimes the strongest person in the room is the person who knows they could respond but chooses not to. That person understands that self-control is power. That person understands that peace is valuable. That person understands that the future is more important than winning an argument today. So protect your peace. Protect your attention. Protect your time. Protect the space where your growth is happening. Because you are building something inside yourself that requires focus. And when you stop giving your energy to every distraction, you begin to realize how much power you actually have. You have more time to learn, more time to think, more time to work, more time to improve, more time to become the person you are capable of becoming. Your silence gives you that room. And sometimes the most important thing you can say is nothing at all. Your actions must become the evidence that your words never could. There comes a point in your life when talking about what you are going to do is no longer enough. You have to start doing it. Anybody can make a promise. Anybody can announce a dream. Anybody can say, I'm going to change. Anybody can tell the world what they plan to become. But eventually, words have to meet action. You don't need to keep telling people that you are growing. Grow. You don't need to keep announcing that you are working on yourself. Work on yourself. You don't need to convince everybody that you have potential. Develop it. There is a special kind of strength that comes from becoming comfortable with working in silence. You stop needing everybody to know what you are doing. You stop looking for applause before you have finished the work. You stop announcing every goal before you have taken the first serious step. You simply begin. And then you continue. And then you continue again. That is how real change happens. Not through one emotional decision, but through small choices repeated over time. Sometimes people want to see the result before they respect the process. They want to see success before they believe you were serious. They want to see the finished product before they acknowledge the hours of work behind it. But you cannot build your life around their approval. You have to learn how to work when nobody is watching. You have to learn how to keep going when nobody is clapping. You have to learn how to stay committed when there is no immediate reward. Because there will be seasons when your progress is invisible. You may be learning something new, but nobody sees how hard you are trying. You may be developing better habits, but nobody notices. You may be becoming more disciplined, but nobody gives you credit. You may be making small improvements every day, but from the outside, it may look like nothing has changed. Don't let that discourage you. A building does not become tall in one day. A skill does not become strong after one practice session. Confidence does not appear because you said you wanted it. Character does not develop because you made one good decision. Growth takes patience. Growth takes consistency. And consistency is often quiet. The world celebrates results, but results are usually the product of countless moments that nobody saw. Nobody sees every time you chose to practice instead of quit. Nobody sees every time you corrected a mistake. Nobody sees every time you started again after falling behind. Nobody sees every time you chose discipline when distraction was easier. But those moments are shaping you. That is why you should not become frustrated when people do not recognize your progress immediately. They may not see what is happening because they are looking at the outside while you are building the inside. Let them look. Let them wonder. You don't have to interrupt their assumptions. You don't have to tell them, just wait until you see what I become. Just keep working. There is something powerful about allowing your results to introduce you. When your actions become consistent, you no longer have to convince people of your seriousness. Your habits show it, your preparation shows it, your discipline shows it, your improvement shows it, your character shows it. You don't have to say, I am becoming stronger. People can see that you handle difficulty differently. You don't have to say, I am becoming more disciplined. People can see that you keep your commitments. You don't have to say, I am focused. People can see that you are no longer distracted by every passing opinion. Your life begins to speak for you. And that is far more powerful than trying to win every conversation. Sometimes you reveal too much too early. You tell everybody the plan. You tell everybody the goal. You tell everybody what you are going to accomplish. Then you receive 10 different opinions from 10 different people. One person tells you that it will not work. Another tells you that you are moving too fast. Another tells you that you should choose something else. Another tells you that someone else already tried it. And suddenly, the confidence you had before the conversation begins to disappear. This is why you have to be careful about who you allow into the early stages of your dreams. Not everyone who hears your vision will understand it. Not everyone who understands it will support it. And not everyone who supports it needs to know every detail. Sometimes your dream needs quiet. It needs time, it needs preparation, it needs room to develop without being constantly exposed to outside opinions. You don't have to make your plans public before you have made progress privately. Let your preparation happen away from the spotlight. There is no shame in being a beginner. There is no shame in learning. There is no shame in making mistakes while developing a skill. But there is danger in spending so much time talking about what you are going to do that you never actually begin doing it. You cannot build a future with announcements. You build it with patience. You build it with discipline. You build it with consistency, one day at a time, one decision at a time, one improvement at a time. And there will be days when you don't feel motivated. Those days matter, because anybody can work when they feel inspired. The deeper test is whether you can continue when the excitement disappears. Can you still show up? Can you still practice? Can you still learn? Can you still do what needs to be done? That is where your strength is being developed. You don't need to feel powerful every day to make progress. You need to remain committed. Sometimes discipline has to carry you when motivation is not there. Sometimes your purpose has to remind you why you started. Sometimes you have to stop looking at how far you still have to go and simply focus on the next step. The next step may look small, but small steps become significant when you keep taking them. A person who improves a little every day can eventually become remarkably different from the person they were before. That transformation may not be dramatic in the beginning. It may be so gradual that even you don't notice it. But then one day you look back and realize that you don't think the same way anymore. You don't react the same way anymore. You don't tolerate the same distractions anymore. You don't make the same choices anymore. You have changed, and you did not need to announce every part of that transformation. You simply lived it. That is the power of letting your actions speak. Your words can tell people what you hope to become. Your actions show them what you are actually becoming. So stop worrying about whether everyone believes in your potential. Potential is not proven by other people's belief. It is developed through your own effort. Stop worrying about whether everyone recognizes your work. Keep working. Stop worrying about whether people understand your process. Keep progressing. Stop looking around to see who is watching. Focus on what you are building, because the strongest evidence is not what you say about yourself. It is what your life consistently demonstrates. Let people talk while you work. Let them doubt while you prepare. Let them underestimate while you learn. Let them question while you remain consistent. You don't need to fight every opinion. You don't need to answer every doubt. You don't need to announce every victory. Keep your head down. Keep your standards high. Keep learning. Keep improving. Keep moving. And when the time comes, you won't need a speech to explain what happened. The work will speak. The discipline will speak. The growth will speak. The results will speak. The person you became will speak louder than everything you could have said along the way. Do not let temporary misunderstanding make you abandon your long-term purpose. One of the hardest lessons you will ever learn is that people may misunderstand you while you are trying to become better. You can have good intentions and still be misunderstood. You can make a responsible decision and still be criticized. You can choose a healthier direction for your life and still have people questioning why you changed. And if you are not careful, their misunderstanding can make you question yourself. You begin asking, maybe I should go back. Maybe I should explain myself again. Maybe I should become the person they were comfortable with. But you have to understand something. Growth often makes people uncomfortable because growth changes what they are familiar with. People may be comfortable with the old version of you. They may be comfortable with the version of you that always said yes. The version that was always available. The version that never spoke up. The version that allowed everyone else to make decisions for you. But when you begin developing confidence, discipline, boundaries, and purpose, your behavior changes. And when your behavior changes, people's expectations of you may change too. That does not automatically mean you are doing something wrong. Sometimes it means you are growing. There is a difference between becoming arrogant and becoming confident. There is a difference between becoming selfish and learning responsibility. There is a difference between becoming cold and learning healthy boundaries. There is a difference between abandoning people and refusing to abandon yourself. You have to learn those differences, because if you mistake growth for selfishness every time someone complains about your progress, you will keep returning to the same place. You will keep shrinking yourself to make other people comfortable. You will keep silencing your potential because someone else feels threatened by your confidence. You will keep abandoning your goals because somebody does not understand them. And eventually, you may wake up and realize that you spent years trying to remain acceptable to everyone while becoming disconnected from who you were capable of becoming. You cannot live that way. Your life requires direction. Your purpose requires commitment. And sometimes commitment means continuing even when you are not understood. That does not mean you should ignore wise advice. Listen when someone gives you honest feedback. Listen when someone points out a genuine mistake. Be humble enough to learn. Be mature enough to admit when you are wrong. But do not confuse constructive correction with constant criticism. Not every person who disagrees with you is against you, and not every person who criticizes you is right. You have to develop the wisdom to separate the two. There will always be voices. Some will encourage you. Some will discourage you. Some will believe in you. Some will doubt you. Some will understand your journey. Some will only see the part of the journey that benefits their opinion. You cannot give every voice equal authority over your life. If you do, you will become confused. One person says go left. Another says go right. One person says take the opportunity. Another says wait. One person says you have changed. Another says you haven't changed enough. If you try to satisfy everyone, you will never move. Sometimes you have to step back from the noise and ask yourself what is actually right. What aligns with your values? What helps you grow? What allows you to become more responsible, disciplined, and capable? What direction moves you toward the person you want to become? Those questions matter more than the temporary opinions surrounding you. Because people see moments, you have to think about the whole journey. Someone may judge you based on one decision, but you know the years of experiences that led you to make that decision. Someone may see you becoming quieter and assume you are angry, but perhaps you are simply learning to think before you speak. Someone may see you becoming more selective with your time and assume you are distant, but perhaps you are finally learning that your time has value. Someone may see you becoming more focused and assume you have changed. Yes, you have changed. And change is not always something to apologize for. If you are becoming wiser, keep becoming wiser. If you are becoming more disciplined, keep developing discipline. If you are learning to manage your emotions, keep learning. If you are learning to respect yourself and others, keep going. If you are building a meaningful future, keep building. You don't have to return to an old version of yourself simply because somebody misses the access they once had to you. Sometimes people miss the version of you that was easier to influence. Sometimes they miss the version of you that did not question anything. Sometimes they miss the version of you that was afraid to say no. But your responsibility is not to remain unchanged for somebody else's comfort. Your responsibility is to grow with wisdom, and growth requires courage. It takes courage to walk away from old habits. It takes courage to change your environment. It takes courage to admit that something is no longer good for you. It takes courage to say, I need to do things differently. And it takes even more courage to continue doing differently when people misunderstand your decision. That is where silence can become powerful. Instead of trying to convince everyone immediately, let your consistency speak. You don't have to say, you will understand one day. Just keep living responsibly. You don't have to say, you will see what I'm becoming. Keep becoming. You don't have to argue about your intentions. Let your character demonstrate them. Time has a way of putting things into perspective. The decision people criticize today may become the decision they understand tomorrow. The discipline they called unnecessary may become the reason you achieve something meaningful later. The boundaries they misunderstood may become the reason you protect your peace and remain focused. The quiet season they thought represented failure may become the season where you develop the greatest amount of wisdom. That is why you cannot judge your entire journey by one chapter. A difficult chapter does not mean the entire story is difficult. A misunderstood season does not mean your purpose is wrong. A temporary setback does not mean you have to abandon your direction. Sometimes you are simply in the middle of the process, and the middle is rarely beautiful. The beginning has excitement, the ending has results. But the middle has uncertainty. The middle has repetition. The middle has doubt. The middle has days when you wonder whether your effort is actually making a difference. That is why you need patience. You need to understand that not everything meaningful becomes visible immediately. Sometimes you are developing strength before you see results. Sometimes you are learning lessons before you understand why you needed them. Sometimes you are being prepared for opportunities that have not arrived yet. And if you quit simply because nobody understands what you are doing, you may walk away from something valuable before it has had time to develop. Do not let temporary discomfort make permanent decisions for you. Do not let one person's opinion become the voice of your future. Do not let a difficult season convince you that you have no purpose. You may simply need more time, more patience, more learning, more preparation, more consistency. There is nothing wrong with taking your time when you are building something meaningful. You don't have to rush just because other people are watching. You don't have to prove your progress every week. You don't have to show everyone evidence that you are changing. Keep doing the work. Eventually, consistency begins to answer questions that words could never answer. People may not understand your silence today. They may not understand your discipline today. They may not understand why you chose a different path. But you do not need immediate understanding to continue doing what is right. You need conviction. You need patience. You need humility. You need the courage to keep moving without constant approval. Because sometimes the greatest test of your purpose is not whether you can keep going when everyone supports you. It is whether you can keep going when nobody understands you. And when you learn to remain steady during that season, you stop allowing outside opinions to determine your direction. You become less reactive. You become more thoughtful. You become more patient. You begin making decisions from purpose instead of pressure. And that is when you discover that being misunderstood does not have to stop your growth. You can be misunderstood and still move forward. You can be questioned and still remain committed. You can be underestimated and still keep developing. You can be overlooked and still keep preparing. You can be criticized and still choose wisdom. You can remain quiet while your life continues to move forward. The goal is not to make everybody understand you. The goal is to make sure that through all the noise, you do not lose sight of who you are becoming. Use quiet seasons to build strength that cannot be taken away by circumstances. There are seasons in life when everything becomes quiet. The phone doesn't ring as much. The opportunities seem slower. The people you expected to stay close may become distant. Plans that once looked certain may suddenly change. And when those moments come, you may be tempted to believe that something has gone wrong. You may look around and think, why isn't anything happening? But sometimes the quiet season is not a sign that nothing is happening. Sometimes it is the season when the most important things are happening inside you. Not everything valuable makes noise. Not every transformation happens in front of an audience. Some of the greatest changes in your life happen when nobody is watching. The world often celebrates visible success, but it rarely celebrates the preparation that comes before it. People notice the achievement. They don't always notice the discipline that created it. They notice confidence. They don't always notice the difficult experiences that taught someone how to stand. They notice wisdom. They don't always see the mistakes that came before the lessons. They notice strength. They don't always see the quiet seasons where that strength was developed. That is why you should not despise a season simply because it is quiet. Use it. If life has given you less noise, use that space to think. If you have fewer distractions, use that time to learn. If you have fewer people around you, use that season to understand yourself better. If your plans have slowed down, use the extra time to prepare. You don't have to panic because everything isn't happening at the speed you expected. Sometimes delay gives you something that speed never could: depth. You may want the opportunity today, but perhaps you need the preparation first. You may want the responsibility today, but perhaps you are still developing the wisdom required to handle it. You may want the result today, but perhaps the process is teaching you things that the result alone could never teach you. Do not rush through the preparation just because you are impatient for the outcome. There are things you can only learn when life becomes quiet. You learn patience. You learn self-control. You learn how to make decisions without constant approval. You learn how to sit with uncertainty without immediately reacting. You learn how to keep moving even when nobody is cheering. You learn how to distinguish what you truly want from what you only wanted because other people were impressed by it. And those lessons matter, because if your strength depends entirely on circumstances being easy, then difficult circumstances will always control you. But when you develop inner strength, you become more stable. You learn that one disappointing day does not have to destroy your confidence. One rejection does not have to define your future. One mistake does not have to determine your identity. One difficult season does not have to become your permanent story. You begin to understand that circumstances can change without taking your character away from you. That is a powerful kind of strength. You may lose an opportunity, but you can still keep learning. You may face disappointment, but you can still choose wisdom. You may experience a setback, but you can still take the next responsible step. You may not know what comes next, but you can still prepare for it. That is what quiet seasons can teach you. They teach you that your strength does not have to come from everything going according to plan. Sometimes strength comes from learning how to remain steady when the plan changes. Think about what happens when a person is always surrounded by noise. There is always another message, another opinion, another distraction, another comparison, another demand, another person telling them what they should do. Eventually, they may lose touch with their own thoughts. But when the noise becomes quiet, something changes. You begin to hear yourself again. You begin to reflect. You begin to recognize patterns in your own behavior. You begin to notice what has been helping you and what has been holding you back. You begin to ask deeper questions. Why am I doing this? What am I learning? What should I change? What kind of person am I becoming? What do I want my life to stand for? Those questions are not always comfortable, but they can be necessary because you cannot grow if you refuse to examine yourself. A quiet season gives you room for that examination, and you should not be afraid of it. You should not be afraid to discover that you need to improve. You should not be afraid to admit that you made mistakes. You should not be afraid to change your approach. You should not be afraid to start again. Starting again does not mean you failed. Sometimes it means you learned enough to know that the old way was not working. There is strength in being willing to adjust. There is strength in being willing to learn. There is strength in saying, I don't know yet, but I am willing to find out. You do not need to have everything figured out immediately. You need to keep developing. And development takes time. A quiet season may feel slow because you are measuring progress only by visible results. But there are other forms of progress. Maybe you are becoming more patient. Maybe you are becoming more responsible. Maybe you are learning to control your reactions. Maybe you are becoming more focused. Maybe you are learning how to communicate better. Maybe you are learning to make decisions without constantly seeking approval. Maybe you are becoming more comfortable with yourself. Those things may not appear on a scoreboard, but they matter. Character matters. Discipline matters. Patience matters. Integrity matters. And when life eventually gives you greater opportunities, those qualities will help you handle them. That is why preparation matters. You don't want success to arrive before you have developed the maturity to manage it. You don't want responsibility before you have developed discipline. You don't want influence before you have developed character. You don't want speed without direction. The quiet season can help you build the foundation, and foundations are usually invisible. Nobody walks past a building and says, "Look at that beautiful foundation." They notice the structure above it, but the foundation is carrying the weight. Your private development works the same way. Nobody may see the hours you spend learning. Nobody may see the discipline you practice. Nobody may see the choices you make when nobody is checking. But those choices are creating the foundation for the person you will become. So stop asking, why isn't anybody noticing me? Ask, what am I becoming while nobody is noticing? That question changes everything. Instead of chasing attention, you start chasing growth. Instead of seeking applause, you start seeking improvement. Instead of comparing your timeline to someone else's, you start focusing on your own development. Instead of worrying about who is ahead, you start asking whether you are moving forward. And that is a healthier way to measure your life. You do not have to become somebody else. You do not have to follow someone else's timeline. You do not have to rush because another person seems to be moving faster. Your journey has its own lessons. Your circumstances have their own challenges. Your responsibilities are different. Your opportunities are different. Your starting point is different. So stop measuring your worth by somebody else's progress. Use your quiet season to become more prepared than you were yesterday. Learn something, practice something, improve something, read something, reflect on something, strengthen something. Every small improvement matters. You may not see a dramatic transformation tomorrow, but small improvements accumulate. One disciplined decision becomes another. One lesson becomes another. One good habit becomes another. One moment of patience becomes another. Eventually, those small decisions create a different way of living. And then one day you realize that the person who entered the quiet season is not the same person who came out of it. You are calmer, you are wiser, you are more prepared, you are less desperate for approval, you are less controlled by other people's opinions, you understand yourself better. You know what deserves your attention and what does not. You know when to speak, you know when to remain silent, you know when to move. You know when to wait. That kind of strength cannot easily be taken away by circumstance because it was not built on circumstances, it was built inside you. So when life becomes quiet, don't immediately assume that you have been forgotten. Don't assume that nothing is happening. Don't assume that the delay means the opportunity is gone. Use the quiet. Use the time. Use the space. Build your character. Build your discipline. Build your knowledge. Build your patience. Build your confidence through preparation rather than empty promises. Because there are seasons when you are not being called to perform. You are being prepared. There are seasons when you are not being asked to prove yourself. You are being developed. There are seasons when the world may not see your progress because your greatest work is happening beneath the surface. And beneath the surface, you are becoming stronger. You are learning, you are preparing. You are developing the kind of foundation that can support whatever comes next. Do not rush out of the quiet just because you are uncomfortable with being unseen. Sometimes being unseen gives you the freedom to grow without pressure. Sometimes being overlooked gives you the opportunity to practice without judgment. Sometimes being alone with your thoughts gives you the opportunity to understand what really matters. Sometimes the silence is not taking something away from you. Sometimes the silence is giving you something you could not receive in the noise.